Hello, it is Diane with Diane's Blue Hearts and Butterflies.com, and the class that I just had, the host wanted to work with foils, and so I found a few designs. This one is working with the specialty foil paper that Stampin' Up! Sells. There's also some foils that have designs on them that are specialty foil type papers. There's also some that just have some bits of foil like gold and silver and copper in them. And this card, I did use some retired products for it because it's what I had on hand. But you can do this technique with any kind of flower that has kind of a two-step stamping. So let me pull out the products that I did use. The Delicate Dahlias was from a celebration a couple of, I think it was last year or year before. And I love that flower. It had the distinctive stamp and an outline stamp. I also used the painted labels dies. I used the largest kind of rectangular one out of there. And then I used the Timber 3D Embossing Folder. And with the 3D Embossing Folder, you do need to make your sandwich out of the base plate, none of the other shims or anything, and then your specialty plate, which is number 4. So you'll put your foils in here, and then you'll make your sandwich by putting this on the base and then this over that and run it through the Stamp and Emboss cut machine. With the 3D folders, depending on the design that you're using, if it has very large grooves, I would probably suggest that you use a used fabric softener sheet in there just to keep the foil from cracking. But I didn't have problem with this timber one. It's more of a subtle embossing folder. So those are that, and then the other is the main part of the card, and that's using these foils. This is the rose gold foils that there are 2 different kind of shiny ones, and then there's one that's more of a brushed type metal. One of them is kind of has more of a rainbowy effect, and then the other one is just kind of glossy. So that is what I used for this card. You could also use things like the brush metallics, the gold, silver, copper, anything like that that you might have. So let me move these things off to the side, and I'll go over. So this is the card that I am working on, and I'll get out so we can go over the pieces that you need. And get that kit out here. So you will need, I used a petal pink cardstock that is 5.5 by 8.5 and scored at 4 1/4, and then you just burnish that score line, kind of line up those edges, and then you'll do that. And then I used Cajun Craze. This is 5 3/8 by 4 1/8. All of my measurements are over on my blog at www.dianesblueheartsandbutterflies.com, and there's a link in my video to that blog. I then, like I said, the petal pink, I did use the die to cut that, and then a piece for the inside. I generally like to have a lighter color on the inside, white or vanilla, to stamp and write on. So this piece is regular. It's a 5 1/4 by 4, and we'll stamp on that and use that. And then this is the rose gold foil, and I took one of each sheet, and this is 1 3/4 by 4 1/8. I saw another person that had kind of done a card, and it wasn't quite like this. It's inspired by one that I saw on Pinterest by a Sherry, and I'm going to butcher the last name, but it's Stoishkovich or something like that. Sorry, I apologize. And anyway, I wanted to make these 3 equal pieces, and so I had to do a lot of math to come up with one that would kind of fit better. And it left more on the top and the bottom than on the sides. But these are what I put inside of the 3D embossing folder, and I embossed them. And then I used, on this one, I used some clear dots that I had, but you could use the elegant faceted gems or even the iridescent rhinestone jewels. And then you can use any kind of twine or ribbon or whatever that you have. I just wanted to use up some of this that I had from the last catalog, some of this Mossy Meadow braided trim, and so that's what I used for my card kits. So let me put this off to the side and kind of bring out some other pieces, because I didn't want the video to go on too long. I have done some of this stuff ahead of time. It is really kind of difficult to see how the this was another technique that I was adding to this card, is the embossing powders, which is also another type of foil that we can use when doing cards. And it's hard to get that changeover from the where you use Versamark and then the embossing powder and then you heat it up. Sometimes you can't get that shimmer on the camera. I'm not sure you can even see it on this camera here, but I wanted to get that done early, just so you don't have to listen to the heat tool. But this is the way that foil comes out once you run it through the embossing folder and through the machine, and you have a nice little area that you can put those together. And then let me just put that over the side here. So what I did to adhere these is just using the Seal Plus. I'm not really good with the white glue. I may have to change and use that, because sometimes when you've embossed some paper in with the embossing folder, it breaks down those fibers. So sometimes it tends to roll up inside this Seal Plus and kind of makes a mess. But I'm hoping this will not do that. I'm just going to take it slow. And if you get some adhesive over the edge, you can just fold it back under. Another good thing to do is have your silicone craft sheet underneath that, and whatever you roll off will stick to it instead of anything else. So here, just double checking, yes, because I wanted to keep the design flowing, so I just wanted to make sure. Oh, let me do something else. I want to start in the middle. So I've got that one already adhered or adhesive on it, but I want to start in the middle because it's sometimes easier so that you don't have so much on one side and so much on another, and so it's kind of easier to do that. Again, I'm just double checking the design flow. So this is the one I want in the middle. So I'm going to kind of eyeball that to have the same on both sides. And I'm just going to stick that down, and then this one will, and I'm just keeping that pattern together, as well as trying to line up the top and bottom, and I'm just butting them up together so that they touch. And then we'll do this one. It's really fun when you kind of decide to do a special class on different types of products or whatever that that are available to use. And then this one I'm going to line up here. Oh, I went over too far. Well, nobody's going to know, but there is a way to kind of fix this. And that's just cutting off some of this other edge. There's all kinds of tricks that you kind of learn as you are doing stamping. And maybe I should have started on one side and gone across. I think it's because I'm in such a hurry trying to get this done that I wasn't paying as close attention as I should have been. So there we go. All right. So now I have that, and then I'm going to adhere that to the card base. Let me grab that really quickly. And this was something else that I had to remind people in my class, because I did it wrong the first time when I was going to stamp the inside piece that goes for the sentiment and stuff inside. And pay attention to the direction that your card is going. This one is running horizontal, so when people open it up, they would like to see everything kind of right there instead of having to turn it. Well, unfortunately, the first one that I had stamped previously to the class when I was preparing the examples, it did actually make that happen. And so I had to remind everybody in the class to make sure that they stamped their image, which this one is just stamping the outline image. And I used Cajun Craze. If you wanted to, you could change this layer here for Calypso Coral, and I think it would go just as well. But I stamped the outline stamp, and then I stamped the background stamp after I stamped off. So this one is a second generation stamp in the background, and it just kind of gave the highlights that I wanted to do. Now, got those. No, I need to stick this one down. I am kind of scattered today. It's been hectic. I have a full-time job that I work outside of the home, and then I have the Stampin' Up! That I do because I love it, and I use it because I like making things, and I feel good about myself when I share things and help people to learn new things. And so it's something that I enjoy. Not everybody likes that part of it, but they like the creative part, and we especially like sharing what we have made with other people because they are generally so happy about what it is. So on the label, I did just do the outline stamp. I stamped it in Versamark first, and then I used the silver embossing powder, and then I heat set that. And then now I'm going to stamp this was the distinctive part. And when you have the stamps that line up and there is a definite pattern, what I tend to do is put a mark in a place on the stamp that I can recognize, and that way I know how to line it up. And so that's what I had already done. And I'm using the Calypso Coral ink. And this pad is really juicy, so I think I'm going to stamp off, and then I will stamp on, and I'm going to line up those places that I know it goes. And then you just hold your stamp down for a little bit. These are water-based dye inks, and so they need a little bit of time to soak into the cardstock. And I was able to get that pretty good, so happy with that. And then I'm going to use the not the Calypso Coral, the Cajun Craze again for the sentiment, and I'm just going to stamp that straight on like that. Get that out of the way. Now on my original card, what I did was I popped up the label using dimensionals, and then I wrapped the ribbon kind of around the back. And of course it is better to use odd numbers when you are doing any kind of if words would just not leave me, that would be great. When you're making loops, when you're adding gems or doing anything like that, it's good to work with odd numbers because it's more visually appealing to people. And I do agree with that, because I did make one of these cards and my loops got a little away from me, and it ended up having 4 loops, and so the 4 just didn't look right to me, so I went with the 3 for our class. And so basically I just kind of found a way to stick part of this down here and then work with some loops to create on this card. Now this does kind of take up some of the dimensional area, and that one needs to come over this way a little more. And I found that the dimensionals had an issue with sticking to the foils anyway, so the dimensionals I still stayed with because I wanted it to pop up on the front. But in order to get it to stick better to the foil, I did use some glue dots kind of on top of those dimensionals in those areas where it's kind of covered up. And get that. One in the middle. Sorry, I think I went off the camera trying to see what I'm doing. And I think it still needs one here. Okay. So then I just kind of lined that up with the front of the card. And then I just added some of these gems to give it a little bit of bling. So these are those elegant faceted gems. They kind of have a patch pattern in the background. Kind of makes it interesting. And you could do however you want, but I just wanted something that kind of subtle, and that is basically this. You could change this message to be anything. It could be a birthday, it could be thinking of you, or just an encouragement card or anything like that. I thought it was, the idea was very good about using those foils, and I wanted to use all three so I could highlight them. And I hope that you enjoy that and that you might give it a try. And please check out my blog. It's at www.dianesblueheartsandbutterflies.com. Link will be in the video. Also, my to help my channel to grow, if you wouldn't mind sharing and subscribing to my channel, and if you click the bell icon, you can be notified when I upload new videos. Since I do have a full-time job, I have limited myself to once a month, which is when I update my blog, and or I try to, because I also send out newsletters and other things like that. So I appreciate you spending your time with me and learning some new techniques and working with foils and the heat embossing. And thank you very much.